And we're back on Convincing Idiots. Nick, Dean, Brian here on the call. We are today discussing our top five, our lists of top five favorites or scariest, depending on the person, horror movies. Which leads me to the question, what do you guys think constitutes a horror movie, a good horror movie? What are you looking for? Dean, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I'm not 100% sure. You have the idea of...
I'm so glad I started with you that you don't have an
like,
answer.
I specifically want to talk about this.
No. I say that as not 100% sure, as in, is it the blood and guts? Is it suspense? Is it supernatural? I mean, you're right. What constitutes a horror movie? So when I say I'm not 100% sure, it's because I think there's so many genres that you could like craft a horror movie into.
Sure.
If that makes sense. So that's why I'm not 100% sure. Like when I had some honorable mentions on my list, the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
I like that.
No blood, there was no guts. There was not even a monster, but the suspense was there. And my honorable mention, first of all, for the Blair Witch is simply the marketing for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of what an amazingly brilliant job they did. People literally, I was in line at the theater, and the woman behind me is talking to her friend, and she's like, well, that they never found those kids. And she's telling the whole premise as it was real.
Yeah, it was very real.
And
that was the first lost footage thing that they
exactly.
Yeah.
So it fooled people. I mean, and I think I probably would have been fooled too. But like earlier in the morning, I watched Good Morning America and saw the girl and the guy being interviewed.
Yeah.
But
so I remember.
Yeah,
I remember being younger when that came out, and that was the big thing going around, right? It's like, oh man, this is real footage they found. This is for real. And like those kids didn't make it back and all this stuff. So like that was really cool. And it's almost like I can still appreciate it. It's almost like when you find out like wrestling's fake and people discount it and go, it's fake, it's predetermined. Yeah, but those dudes are, I think if you can just kind of lose yourself in that for a minute and just appreciate it for being a good, it's almost like they do the same thing now with the paranormal activities.
Right.
They're made to look like they're actual camera footage, and it's supposed to freak you out. And if you let yourself just go there with it like you would any other movie,
and
I've never watched Friday the 13th or Pumpkinhead or something and thought, man, that's real. That could really, you're supposed to suspend, your belief here and enjoy it. So, I have a soft spot for Blair Witch. I thought that was a good movie. And, if you can do that with it, it's fun.
Is Blair Witch horror?
I get where someone would sit there and go, I get where someone would sit there and say that, like, it's not because all they did was put body cams on but still it takes acting. And I think the scene at the end is scary when they, if you're in the movie and you think these kids are lost in the woods and they happen upon this cabin or this, and go find this stuff. And wasn't there tongues that sticks out to me? There were tongues hanging on a wall.
The ending didn't have a great payoff for me personally, but it was like just objects or like sticks and stuff or whatever. But yeah. Well, let's go back to your question. So, Dina, you said that yes, it's not necessarily violence,
right?
Is it more the feeling that you have? Is it the believability that makes it horror? What is it?
What brings out the horror in you? Like what scares you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it, some people, it could be the monster, the scary monster coming out. It could be the blood and guts. Could be the suspense. A horror movie means something different, probably for everybody. But you have a bunch of different genres in that horror idea.
Yeah. Like for me, I've never the over-the-top blood, guts, and gore, while the effects or whatever, and it's all well and good. That doesn't scare me. The slow walking guy with the knife thing doesn't scare me, the monsters or whatever. But for me, it's always been suspenseful things. That's why Psycho is one of my favorite movies. Just take away the horror tag or whatever. It's a fantastic movie. And I'm just going to really quickly shout out the series on Netflix, Black Mirror, which I love. I think it's like a modern day Twilight Zone. It's it messes with your head and it makes you feel uneasy. And I really like it. It does something internally. It's not necessarily, I don't know, sometimes it's scary, and other times I would describe it as more of, it just psychs you out. It makes you think, and it kind of freaks you out in a different way, and I really like that. I like something that challenges you like that. Yeah, Black Mirror is very good.
Now, Brian,
I agree. Go ahead, Dean.
Brian, being the older generation of us, like what horror movie like brought you into it? You know what I mean? Like, you could have your favorites, like what was that movie that just, kind of like Star Wars brought you into that sci-fi and, era and genre?
There's a couple on my list. I mean, The Exorcist was good to bring into the storyline and the whole despair and everything else they experienced. But two on my list, The Omen. It's about the birth of the Antichrist, and the whole Gregory Peck and all the acting was great. But it was like they did so well with aligning it with the scriptures of the Bible. And you made it you knew it was obviously a movie, but it made it very believable. I could picture something like this actually happening, and the people protecting him and all that. It just sucked me right into the storyline. It just, and the whole ending when he's racing to try to, sacrifice him in a church, and the police are chasing him. I mean, every time I know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm just drawn so into the story because, again, it's very believable,
Yeah.
And the same thing with The Shining. The Shining, you are in that hotel with Jack Nicholson, and you can imagine if you were cooped up in somewhere for months and actually it's kind of weird with the I guess the quarantine we have now, not to that level,
I'm telling you,
but it does mess with your mind.
I shared
you can imagine somebody losing their mind in that situation and just snapping. Now the whole supernatural stuff around it was kind of okay, but just that premise of some guy slowly losing his mind was very believable. What's that?
So this is fun because it ties us both in, because Dean is the character in The Shining, and my middle name, I was named after the kid from The Omen. So that's fun.
There you go.
Are you really?
My middle name is Damien. Yeah.
Because of the movie?
And that's that is why. That's where they got the name.
Oh, wow. See that?
So my first name, I was named after a heroin addict, and my middle name, the Antichrist. So yeah, Nicky Six and Damien from The Omen. So good stuff.
You know what? Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
So, speaking of storylines and how believable and all that, Dean, we both had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on our list.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what about that movie brought it to your top 5?
I liked it.
Excellent. See, you don't get these type of opinions on a lot of shows here, folks.
You come here for the insight. You come here for the neat shit. All the neat shit is here.
That's right.
I put the Texas Chainsaw Massacre up there almost for the same reason where I almost put Night of the Living Dead on my list.
Yes.
It had like that. I mean, yeah, all the 70s movies had that cinematic grit to them. But it was the way the filmmakers like visually put it out there. You know what I mean? At the end, when he's out there at the very end, when he's swinging the chainsaw overhead, and that music in the background. I mean, even then you're kind of you're spooked, and there's nothing going on. The people got away, and they're just panning out of this maniac. Yeah, and once again, it's one of those believable moments. To an extent, but you could imagine needing help and having to go into this house. It's a believable situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I had to look up her. Go ahead.
It was based on a real story. Also, based on. I'm not saying it was
the way Amityville was based on. They're loose things. Yeah.
Actually, what it is based on? Okay, what it's based on is Ed Gein was a serial killer who was Nick. The premise of Psycho was based on him as well.
Okay.
if I recall correctly, he had the corpse of his mother kept in his house. I think that's where Hitchcock got the idea for Norman Bates.
Okay, cool.
But Leatherface,
a massacre too.
He did. Leatherface was based on Ed Gein wearing the skin of victims, and he had human bone furniture and stuff like that. So that was true, but everything else was not.
Dead mother?
Huh?
Wasn't the mother all dead and stuff in the chair?
The grandparents. You're correct. In the attic. The grandfather was barely alive, but the grandmother was dead in the attic. You're right.
Can we just stop to appreciate these people, ill as they were mentally? Yeah. First of all, the craftsmanship to cut off someone's face and wear it, and also sure, I didn't know that was a thing. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, do it, and it whatever. That's pretty impressive. Also, to preserve a human and keep them in your house, these are intelligent people. I'm just saying, let's give credit where credit is due.
It takes commitment.
It does. Very painstaking. Yeah.
And it's easier these days with all like the Halloween decorations you can get at the different stores. But like you could have a skull ashtray and nobody would think twice. They'd be like, "Dude, where'd you get that? That's pretty Spirit Halloween."
No, this is authentic though. This is like authentic.
Made it myself.
Tune in for a future episode where we'll have Nick's cranium ashtray. Where Dean and I will smoke cigars and ash into it. That'll be our finale. So now for Texas Chainsaw, I had to look her name up today. Okay, so if you've not seen this movie, watch this movie. There's not a lot of gore in that movie.
Right.
The storyline is so bizarre. Yep. And like you said, it's a believable situation. Another thing that was horrifying too, a lot of it took place during the day. When they went up to the house to begin with, the first killings and all that was middle of the afternoon, seeking gasoline, and they just stumbled the wrong house at the wrong time, and there you go. But Marilyn Burns was that actress in Texas Chainsaw that played Sally. Her performance in that movie of the terrified girl, like the surviving girl, was one of the best that you will ever see in any horror movie. I challenge anybody. Of a victim in any horror movie to outact that. Now I looked at, she had passed away a few years ago at 65, but her screaming, her reactions, the movement in her eyes, that drew me into that story even more because of her performance in that movie.
I don't know, man. That Happy Gilmore scream, the happy look out, like that one. That's a good one.
Okay, real quick.
You're lucky you're far away that I can't punch you right now.
Hold on. Can we first acknowledge and appreciate, once again, Nick had said earlier in the show about Brian's commitment. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if there's nicknames given out, Statman really, really, Statman Brian Fisher is not a bad nickname.
I thought it every time he's like, I researched this and I looked this up. I'm like, wow, really? Like, that's awesome.
You know when she died? I mean, he may have killed her. I don't know, but he at least knew when she died.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive.
That's veteran presence on the roster right there. That's what that does for you.
Statman.
There you go. Right. My extensive 20 minutes of research has paid off. So what else do we got here, guys? So, Nick, what else was on your list? You talked about The Sixth Sense a little bit too. The kid creeps you out. What else did you have? Why Psycho? Psycho on your list.
Oh, Psycho. Mentioned. Okay, so actually, I texted you guys the other night, and of course I think of this where other place, but in the shower, and I think, oh my God, Psycho! I forgot Psycho because we all sent our list to each other just to give a brief outline, and I had my 5, and I didn't have Psycho. I'm like,
did you think of it? Did you think of it because you were in the shower, or because later you dressed as your mother?
Because I what?
Because later you dressed as your mother.
Let's go with the shower thing. It was the shower thing. It was definitely the shower thing.
Fair enough.
Definitely the shower thing. My secondhand clothes from my mother really don't have anything to do with the decision. No, so I forgot Psycho because I guess I don't, in my head when I think horror movies, I'm thinking of the monsters, I'm thinking of the gore, that's where my mind goes, even though that's not what I typically appreciate most about horror movies. And I forgot Psycho. It's one of my favorite movies in general. So I just think it's when you brought up The Thing, and I said every time The Thing's on TV, I'm stuck there for the remainder of that film when it's on TV. It's the same thing with Psycho. With Psycho, every time I see it on, I'm gonna watch the whole thing through. Mm-hmm. The acting is incredible.
Yeah.
The premise of it, it's all very eerie, and there's not, like you said before, it's one of those movies where there's really not a lot of bloodshed or violence. I mean, there's the famous shower stabbing scene, but most of it is just him being weird and creepy, and you don't know what's going on in there, and you know what I mean? You're interested, you're intrigued. And I know I already talked about another TV show, but I thought what the Motel was fantastic. Like, I don't know if either one of you guys, I really enjoyed it. Did you watch the whole thing?
I did.
Okay. I really liked it.
All right. We really should say spoiler alert for a lot of this stuff, right? I mean, I know
it's been over for a couple of years. It's fine.
Okay. How can you watch the end of the show and the end of the series and you know what I mean? It wasn't even the same story.
Well, yeah, okay. I get what you're saying there. I like what they did with it, but I don't know, I guess I liked because, I mean, it takes place in modern day. I mean, in the first season, he has an iPhone. I mean, like, it's kind of, you're suspending it's fitting in with the exact timeline. And it's kind of separate, but the same. Anyway, we're getting off track.
Yes.
I like the series just for what it was as a standalone thing, but also kind of tying into that. It kind of plays off of the psyche of him, what got him there, but without actually saying this is how this happened to this specific version of Norman Bates or whatever. Anyway, I really like it. I like the fact that, I don't know, there's something really intriguing, something very intriguing to me about, like, the human brain and how powerful it is. Mm-hmm. And the fact that anything is possible, I guess, in your own mind. Your brain is so powerful, it can make people do what we would say crazy or erratic things or acts, out of the norm behaviorally. And I don't know. I really like things like that. So it really hits in the wheelhouse for that for me. And then the acting is fantastic. Just the whole thing is, I think it really holds up. It's just a fantastic movie, and I love.
Yeah, it's believable.
Yeah,
you can picture a guy again lost his mind, abused by his mother, whatever, and he was convinced that she's still alive through him. And the brilliance of Hitchcock in that movie to focus on the lead actress, who's actually is Jamie Lee Curtis's actual mother.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I did.
But to focus her storyline and build her up, and you get to know that character traveling across the country, and all of a sudden, boom, they kill her off in the shower. It was like, wow, what just happened here? Yeah. You thought that she would be the survivor, then you bring in the other actress. But just and at the time, bloodshed in movies was a whole thing. So to have that scene, even where they had a little bit of blood running down the drain, was unprecedented at that era. So yeah, Hitchcock was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So.
In Scream too, like in the promotion of Scream, Barrymore, you're thinking, well, Drew Barrymore's in this, and then she's dead in the first, 5 minutes.
They clearly influenced by a Psycho,
right?
So, yeah,
Paris Hilton House of Wax, the same.